Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome to Blocked Content. Today we're talking about Paper Mario. There's a new game coming out for the Wii U, and it's called Paper Mario Color Splash. And it looks to be a continuation of Sticker Star, which came before on the Nintendo 3DS. And this was actually a pretty divisive title because a lot of fans didn't quite like that the RPG elements from Paper Mario, like the first game, Paper Mario for the Nintendo 64, and the second game, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door for the GameCube, those games were very RPG, very story-driven. They had great partners, they had great humor, and suddenly comes along this Super Paper Mario game where everything was platforming based, and then they actually made Sticker Star, and all the fans were left with a game that was like a shell of its former self. And Nintendo kind of did notice all that. But it looks like with Paper Mario Color Splash, they're not directly addressing the actual problem. I think, from the trailers alone, Paper Mario Color Splash, it looks amazing. The graphics are very well done. They're taking that paper aesthetic to the next level with all the cardboard cutout backgrounds and the actual paper effect on your characters too. Even the wind blowing kind of makes your paper wobble a little bit. And I like those touches because, it gives a little bit more life and believability to that it's a toy box or that it's paper. Even though I can totally agree that some people say, why is it all, paper-based? It wasn't like that before, just the character were paper, and that was just a visual style. And now everything is just paper, just like Woolly World was just everything is wool now because the backgrounds for Yoshi games used to be sort of, wool, and now everything is wool. So this is what they're doing with Paper Mario Color Splash, and I actually like it. It's colorful, they're doing the right things, and the graphics are actually quite awesome. The textures look really good, and that's about where it ends for me as far as being positive about this game. So let me just talk to you about what I think of Sticker Star. Sticker Star was a game that I thought was actually quite okay. It had some pretty cool new mechanics. I did like the stickers. I did like, kind of the overall way the game played and the way you travel across the map, and that everything was a little bit more stage-based. I thought it worked well for like a portable version of Paper Mario. But of course, the soul of Paper Mario was lost. These games are very well known because they are very humorous, they have tons of characters, and, buddies, partners in the game. Mario always has these little partners that he collects along the way, friends that he meets. So there would be like Bob-ombs, but a pink Bob-omb, or a Goomba, but a smart Goomba that, knows the enemies. So you'd get to use all these different partners to sort of, make your way through a new part of the game and choose wisely what partner you need in battle, what other partners you need to traverse the world, and that wasn't there at all in Paper Mario Sticker Star. And that looks to be continuing in Paper Mario Color Splash. Now, there's been a little bit more information released from Nintendo, so they're spilling the beans on Color Splash. This is what Nintendo had to say. When we think of what we cannot do in traditional Mario games, what we came to was, definitely humor. So we wanted to focus on humor as much as possible. All these different people got together in meeting rooms and basically very diligently and seriously thought of how we could do the stupidest, craziest things possible. Now, Nintendo, let me stop you right here. In a traditional Mario game, you can do humor. Of course you can do humor. The way the characters look and interact and the things that you can do in the world. Mario games have always kind of, been a little tongue-in-cheek and funny. Of course, there's no dialogue in standard, Super Mario 3D World kind of games. But there was a lot of humor and heart in maybe even Mario Galaxy 1 and Mario Galaxy 2. So that doesn't really play with me here. And let me also say that Super Mario has always had this humorous undertone. Think of Mario and Luigi, the other RPG series on the handhelds. That is just brimming with joy, and I can't really see how Paper Mario for them is the humor series. It was always very well known as having this very funny heart and center, but it wasn't about humor. always. It was about the adventure, the people you meet along the way, the world, and, you know, the RPG system. Okay, so, sorry for intercutting. More from Nintendo. There are tons of different cards in the game. Obviously, Mario is going to be throwing fireballs at some point. There's kind of like a spring jump where you can actually jump a ton of different times on one end. As you continue the game, you'll open up more card slots, and the amount of paint you're able to store in your hammer will expand. Okay, so let me stop you again. So cards, right? They're essentially the same as stickers in the previous game, so that doesn't really bode well. You know, why couldn't Nintendo just see that the hate for that game also kind of came from the sticker mechanic, and why are they continuing it here? You know, everything that, you know, makes people look back at that game, you know, you should kind of avoid, right? Also, you know, having the hammer back is awesome, and the paint mechanic, okay, you know, it's a cool story element, it's a fun gimmick. Every game from Nintendo needs this gimmick. I get it. It's okay. But, you know, a spring jump where you can jump a ton of different times on one end, you know, I don't see it. You know, this was already in the first Paper Mario, it was in the second. You know, you're not tricking us with something that has always been there. So, I don't know. Okay, we go on. We kind of focused on trying to have each course have a different feel. One course might be more focused on battle, but another course might focus more on puzzle solving. There are definitely different places where you will need to have platforming skills. Okay. I gotta stop you again, because we focused on having each course to give it a different feel. Each course, so, okay, it's not one linked overworld like the other games, okay? Confirmed right here that, you know, I'm slowly losing hope here, Nintendo. I'm so sorry, but this is what happens if you make great games and then down the line you don't see what was great about them, and you just stop putting effort in the right things and put all your resources on the wrong things. There are definitely different places where you will need platforming skills. You know, there was a tiny bit of platforming in the first Paper Mario games, but that was just, you know, to get from one end to the other to kind of make it more fun in between the battles. But the battles were where the game was really, you know, found its ground. I don't know. We go on. Okay. The artists spent a lot of time thinking like, maybe we can try this and it'll look really nice like paper. Maybe we'll have to do this to make it look like paper. The base of everything is made from cardboard, and then on top of that you're layering different types of paper. Okay, you know, I talked about this. I like the aesthetic. I get it that people think that, you know, the paper is going too far. You know, it's called Paper Mario, but it was called Paper Mario. Now, in Japan, it was called Super Mario Story or something. You know, it was just kind of a visual storytelling medium to have sort of sprites in the game, right? And they turned around and they looked like paper, and that was funny. So, you know, in North America and Europe, they just called it Paper Mario because that fit the aesthetic. But now they take that concept a little bit too far, and they build game mechanics around that everything is paper. You know, to me, that doesn't really work. You know, if you have a video game that has line art, you don't create a game mechanic around the lines, you know, grabbing the lines and walking on them. Or if you have a cel-shaded game, you work with that. I don't know. It should just be the visuals, you know, and it shouldn't translate into gameplay always. I don't think so. You know, a game like Paper Mario, please just keep it like the Thousand Year Door was. That game had everything that I loved, and it's very sad to see a franchise that was so awesome get diminished so much because Nintendo just doesn't see the appeal. And I'm very sure that if Nintendo were to bring out Paper Mario, you know, the GameCube version, the Thousand Year Door, if they would bring that out in HD, everyone would buy that game because it looks fantastic, and in HD it would look phenomenal. And I think seeing the sales of that could definitely, you know, kind of persuade Nintendo into, hey, maybe make a game like the old days. You know, I know the Wii U is, you know, at its end. You know, we're gonna get the NX very soon. You know, it's actually gonna get announced pretty soon. I hope. We're getting it early next year. We're closing in on that, and I know they needed to churn out a game, you know, next to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. But to have it be Paper Mario and to just kick us in the teeth with Color Splash, you know, Sticker Star. I don't... it's very hard, guys. I'm having a hard time because I want to enjoy these games and I want to play them. I want to buy them, you know. I want to be proud of continuing this Paper Mario story, and I'm just not feeling it with this latest game. I actually thought one of the cutscenes looked really cool. The opening cutscene, you can look it up online. It's actually very interesting and it has a cool style. I really hope there are more cutscenes in the game that kind of make it a little more, you know, theatrical or cinematic. I like that kind of stuff, but it looks like the heart is gone again. And to me, heart was the biggest part of Paper Mario. Well, I hope you guys like this video. Please subscribe to Blocked Content for more on my thoughts and my friends' thoughts. We do a lot of cool videos for you guys on video games, films, TV shows, and animation stuff. So subscribe, please leave a comment, and let me know what you think of Paper Mario Color Splash. We'll see you guys next time. See ya.